Now that Scipio and Flavius are in the game and we've had plenty of opportunity to test with these commanders, I want to update the legendary tier list to give you everything we know at this moment in time about the balance of commanders and where they best perform in the game at this exact moment. So stick around in this video for the best choices you can make for investing in commanders. And for those of you that find this commander stuff a little overwhelming, let me tell you about the sponsor of this video, a war game that has no commanders at all. This is War and Order, a commanderless city building war game. And you may be wondering, how does this work without having commanders? Well, every time you send your army out, your army gets the benefit of your lord stats. Those are enhanced a number of ways, including sick equipment and also some sweet emblems that you power up with materials, and every army you send gets the benefit of all of these stats that you have accumulated and bonuses, and you can choose whether or not you want to pick equipment that helps your economy or to help you in war, and of course you can switch between them very quickly with presets if you felt so inclined. War and Order is a free-to-play game with a number of things you can buy to enhance the power of your castle, but much of what you can buy is also obtainable free to play. If you'd like to check it out, the link is in the description to download. You can join us in Realm 1492, where we have the Smash Squad, or you can join in a brand new realm, and downloading using this link does support the channel. So if you are going to play, be sure to use the link in the description. And thank you again to War and Order for sponsoring this video. In this video, I'm going to give you everything we figured out so far about how Scipio and Flavius have changed the relative strength of all of the legendary commanders in Rise of Kingdoms so that you can make some better commander investment choices. Here is the rating system that I use for grading commanders. It's a letter grading system where S is the very best, plus is slightly better, minus is slightly worse, and I evaluate across the same categories every time: city defense, open field, rallying objectives, rallying cities, defending objectives, and canyon. And there's always timestamps in the description so you can jump to whichever portion of the video you're most interested in. And I'll be brief. When it comes to defending your city, Flavius seems fine, but he also feels about as strong as Jadwiga to me. Really, the thing that you want to use is YSS and Theo at the very end game, if you have them, for defending your city. And I have personal experience using Jadwiga to defend my city, and I was not all that impressed with how she performed compared to YSS and Theo. These commanders, I think, are just the straight-up better choice. Of course, the better choice for almost all players is to just not get your city rallied in the first place and use a peace shield. Your peace shield is the best garrison commander in the game. It is unbeatable. So just use that rather than getting your city rallied if you are in KVK Season 4 and beyond especially, rather than trying to pick garrison commander choices. The only reason you are investing in legendary garrison commanders for most players for defending your city is on a farm if you have legendary sculptures and it's a C25 account. Let's talk about the category that is far more important for every single player in the game, and that is open field. And this is where I actually give Scipio the best grade possible, the S+, baby. And this was a difficult one because I thought, is he really that much better than Guan Yu? I don't think so. He just barely wins this prize because of his AoE damage, AoE health reduction, instant proc damage, march speed, ton of stats. Oh yeah, AoE shielding. Scipio does all the things that you want in an open field commander, and I think he's the strongest open field commander investment choice for most players. Now, I'm not saying he's the best commander in the game. That's a different story. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I do think that he ekes out Guan Yu as the best open field commander investment, and I do think he's better than Nevsky for most players, although Nevsky is extremely strong and was definitely in consideration for being one of the best open field commanders in the game. By the way, the debate of Nevsky and Scipio is really like overhyped right now, and people are acting as if Nevsky is god tier, and this is not an actual reflection of reality where the whole community is laughing at people who max Scipio but can't beat Nevsky. But the thing is, everybody, and you got to leave it to Jim to explain this for you, XY Nevsky beats Guan Scipio in a 1v1 fight. Maybe, but we don't fight 1v1, and that's the thing. That's the thing, is that Guan Scipio is so good in group fights that, like, you gotta respect how amazing Scipio is, and that's why he got the S+. By the way, if you're getting value from this video and learning something about commanders and Rise of Kingdoms, do me a huge favor and throw a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It supports the channel tremendously and helps so much. Otherwise, the open field list really didn't change that much. I bumped down Saladin ever so slightly because I need a way to differentiate between, like, hey, how good is Nevsky and how good is Saladin? Like, obviously, Nevsky is a bit better here. So I needed a slight differentiation between the two. That's the only reason I bumped him down. I do plan to still use, potentially, Saladin in my starting 5 marches. So obviously, I still think he's a very strong open field commander in the game at this moment in time. I do think, however, that Flavius is not a very strong open field commander. And I've put him in the sort of niche category of commanders where I really think all he does is Garrison. And I'm not saying you couldn't use him in the field. I'm just saying if you invest in him specifically to use in the field, I think you will be disappointed compared to the many other better options that you have for almost every single player. So I don't think this is a commander you should hunt for the open field. And for players that have done that, I'll be eager for your thoughts down below in the comments if you feel this was worth it compared to other investments you could have done. This brings us to everybody's favorite category, rallying cities. Who doesn't like a good city rally? I think that XY and Nevsky are still god tier. They're amazing for rallying cities. However, there were a bunch of commanders I had to bump down because really there's only a couple city rallies that you're going to use in Rise of Kingdoms, at least at the time of this recording. You're going to use XY and Nevsky, maybe Attila and Nevsky, maybe Bertrand with Nevsky. The cavalry are amazing. You might use Gilgamesh and Nebu. That's an amazing city rally. And if you needed to rally with infantry for some reason, and you needed anti-swarm, you would use Pakal and Harold. And in any of these combos, you probably could throw in Mehmed, and he would do great, as long as he's got his relic. But I think that's pretty much it for the stuff you're using to rally cities. Yes, XY and Chandragupta is good, but I bumped it down because I think that compared to these other options, you would prefer all of them. I bumped down Pakal and Harold because I actually don't think that that's your go-to city rally. I think it's your rally option if you're going to do infantry and they're going to swarm, then that's what you use. I don't think it's quite as good as the other stuff. I bumped down Guan Yu. Let me tell you something. I asked if people thought that Guan Yu and Scipio were going to be a rally combo, and Ruz said kick him from the alliance. So people are speculating that Guan Yu and Scipio will be a thing, but I don't think that that's a proper city rally. We'll see. I'm open to it. I think it could work, but I gave Scipio the A+ here. I don't think he's really a rally commander. I really don't. And I don't think that pairing him with Guan Yu is a particularly exceptional rally. People have been trying to rally with Guan Yu for a long time, and you'll see plenty of Guan Yu reports where it's like, look, I wrecked a city. I'm like, sure, they weren't using a meta Garrison. Like, that's fine. If that's what you're rallying, that's fine. Anything will work. So I don't think that the Guan Scipio rally is where we're at, but I hope I'm proven wrong because that will be kind of cool to see. This brings us to rallying objectives, where again, there's a narrow set of commanders that I think I can strongly advise to you. And it's those same commanders of like Nevsky and XY and Nebu. Those are all like really good. Gilgamesh is also really, really strong here. I mean, it's the same rally combos we've been seeing, but I think that the Gilgamesh-Nebu combo will start to get more prevalence to try to take down all these Zeno, Flavius garrisons that I expect we will see, and I expect will ultimately be the strongest garrison you can muster at this moment in time. But I don't think that the Gilgamesh and Nebu does overly well against that garrison. I think that is because future archers will be the way that you're supposed to take that down. And those archers are only going to come in the game maybe in a couple months. So I think right now you use Gilgamesh and Nebu and then try to swarm the garrison. But the reason I didn't give Gilgamesh the S+ and I left that on Nevsky is that there are 3 Nevsky cav rallies right now that are actually insane and just take down anything else that people put in the garrison. And that includes XY with Nevsky, which is going to be the most damage, but the least swarm protection. Then there's Bertrand with Nevsky, which I think gives you a lot more swarm protection, but does slightly less damage, but only slightly. And then there is Attila Nevsky, which is the least damage by far of all of those choices, but is the most anti-swarm you could ask for in a cav rally at this moment. That's the way I would think about those 3 cav rallies. I think that Attila with Nevsky is overused right now, but because it's so strong as an anti-swarm, it's amazing. And if they don't have the right garrison in play against Attila Nevsky, then they are going to get wrecked. But I think you could have done better if they weren't swarming with the XY Nevsky in any situation where you were going to use Attila Nevsky. So if they are not swarming, I think XY Nevsky is kind of the jam. And we'll see how that holds up against the sort of Flavius meta. But I think that those are really the only commanders I would recommend you rally with. Of course, Bakal and Herald are still a fine infantry rally. They're just like a very vanilla anti-swarm infantry rally. It's not going to trade overly great, but you also can't do a lot to deal with it with regard to swarming and counter-rallying. Sometimes even the counter-rally ultimately ends up just enhancing the strength of the rally overall because the counter-rally isn't reinforced and it's run into the ground, giving Pakal and Herald a lot of damage mitigation and damage dealt. Now, when it comes to garrisoning stuff, I think that Flavius really shifts things around here, where Xeno primary, Flavius secondary is very difficult to deal with. That is because Xeno boosts all damage by 30%, and then you've got Flavius smacking with his huge 2,300 damage factor plus 450 damage over time. This is just very difficult to deal with, especially because Flavius makes the target take more damage from infantry as well. I think this is our Garrison to beat right now. Until new archers come, I think this is going to be difficult to deal with without a swarm. I'm eager to be proven wrong because it's very difficult to deal with a Garrison meta, but that might be where we're at this exact moment in time in the balance of commanders, where really we only have 2 sort of rotations of commanders at the new power level. We've got the Nevsky rotation with Bertrand, and then we've also got the current rotation with Scipio and Flavius, and we haven't yet gotten an archer or leadership rotation that has that same power level as the commanders that they've been releasing. And I will say, unfortunately, for the archer garrison right now, Amanatoria and Artemisia, this garrison is just too swarmable. It's very difficult to use in a flag, really at any point where they might swarm. And even in a fort, they struggles with the possibility of being swarmed. And this is just because cavalry are too strong right now. And the archers don't have that sort of mythic tier, is what I've been calling it, garrison, to deal with that. So I think that archers are really weak in the garrison meta. And hopefully that means we'll just be shifting the use of all of our archers from garrisoning, for the most part, to rallying. And then we garrison with infantry as well. And then we probably rally and garrison with cavalry. That's my expectation of where things are going to go. Archers, again, for rallying, infantry for garrisoning for the most part, and then cavalry for rally and garrison. That's not to say, again, that a Pakal Herald rally is exactly bad, but, you only have so many troops in your kingdom of each troop type, and where will you deploy them? I think, for the most part, that will be the breakdown. This brings us last but not least to Canyon, and I don't think that CPO takes the S+ spot in Canyon. I think that's still Esong. I think that's still fair to say that his AoE is just disgusting, and Nebu Esong is one of those back row DPS combos that will be very hard to replace. But I hope to be proven wrong, because it'd be nice to kind of shake that up a little bit with what is actually viable in the back row. I don't think that CPO with CJ is going to be better than Nebu with Esong, but I do think that that combo works well in an off lane, which is why I have boosted ever so slightly the ranking of CJ in Canyon, because I do think that this gives kind of new life to him. But I also think that you would prefer in every situation that you would use CPO and CJ instead to use CPO and Honda, because Honda is just absolutely disgusting in Canyon. I actually bumped down Gilgamesh's rating in Canyon because he's really not used there at all, even with the addition of the new infantry commanders and infantry being used with CPO Honda in the offlane instead of Nevsky with Honda. I would say that the Gilgamesh still really doesn't have a spot in a top tier endgame Canyon team at this moment in time. And I did bump up Leonidas' role ever so slightly, because now there's more room to do stuff with infantry because of the addition of CPO. So people are more likely to bring in this Guan and Leo combo, which does a lot of damage. I find that it is not quite as tanky as you would prefer for your front line compared to Guan Constantine, which seems to be meta, and then using Trajan Mulan. However, I am kind of eager to see if CPO will change up what is used in that front row of commanders. And just to show you exactly what I'm talking about over here, this defense is kind of what I have been using as very much like a standard go-to configuration, kind of like this. Okay, and so we've got the Guan Yu, Constantine, Trajan, and Mulan. Actually, technically, I should have those flipped around, so that's an interesting mistake on my part. Let's configure it like that. So who do I think is the best commander overall, and what are the overall ratings for commanders? I actually would give Nevsky the S+. And you may be like, wait a minute, I'm a little confused here. I thought you said Scipio was the best in the open field, and he is, but if you look at his stat card, and I'll have that up on the screen here, I think that Scipio is great for the open field, the best for the open field. And I think he's great in Canyon, but I don't think that makes him the best commander overall. When you look at what Nevsky can do, he can be used in the open field, he can be used for rallying cities, he can be used for rallying objectives, and he can be used in Canyon. And he actually is one of the best marches in the game for swarming a garrison, which is only really relevant for high power endgame players. I think that he is probably the strongest commander in the game at this moment, but I don't think that he's the single best investment for most players. I actually still would say for most players that are just open fielding, Scipio is the better play. So people are going to get really, I think, confused, and they're going to see that I gave Nevsky the best rating, but they're also not going to understand that just because he has the best rating doesn't mean that he's the best for everybody. In fact, for most people, you really should just look at that open field column, and that's where you should be deciding which commander am I most interested in with regard to investing in some of the strongest commanders in the game. Now, that meant that I had to bump down Guan Yu's open field rating ever so slightly because I gave that to Scipio, but his overall rating is still very high. And if I had to rank the commanders, not quite in order, but close to being in order for their overall strength, I would say that Nevsky is at the top. XY is next because he's a part of so many rallies and open field and Canyon. And Nebu is in a similar spot, so good in open field and rallies and Canyon. And then Scipio, who's only good at field and Canyon. Then I've got Gilgamesh, who's really good in a number of situations, but not in Canyon. I've got Guan Yu, who is not really for rallying at all. Like, he's just for field. But he's really good in the field and really good in Canyon. That silence is crucial. Then I've got Isong, Pakal, and Herald, Alexander the Great. I've got Amanatoria and Artemisia, and this is very important to discuss here. Those commanders are on the bubble for being S commanders, and they're almost S minus. I think I will probably be bumping them down when new archers come into the game, but until they do, I mean, this is a great pair of commanders. They're just a little weak right now to all the cavalry that are running around, and all those cavalry are running around for good reason. And we'll see if that's offset by the fact that now there's going to be a bunch of additional infantry to go hit, but I don't think that it will be. The only other commander that really shifted in this list from the last time that I provided it is a slight update to CJ. I bumped up his open field rating because I think that since he does have more infantry commanders running around to potentially pair with, the good news for CJ here is that it's more viable to run more infantry marches at this moment in time in the game. So you might bring him into the mix, but I still feel like he does so little that is unique. And he's not really good at swarming garrisons. He's really just good in the field. I think that he has not a great investment as a commander compared to your other options because they are better in more places. I'm not saying he's not fine. I'm just saying he's unremarkable. And in a world where we have lots of remarkable commanders, Guan Yu silence, Scipio everything, Nevsky insanity, I just feel like there's a lot of other better commanders you could choose. Let me know your thoughts about this tier list down below in the comments. I will be playing on my restart account in KVK starting tomorrow, and I'll be getting plenty of exposure with commanders like CJ and Scipio and more. So if you want to see exactly how they perform, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that live stream. And please do leave a comment down below if there are any other commanders you think that we underrated or overrated, or how you would ultimately change up this list. I will be making an update to it, of course, after I've done battling on my restart account and probably also on my main account, which, by the way, we are entering KVK in about a week or so, which means maybe 2 weeks from now we'll be fighting, which I'm very much looking forward to. And until next time, you have fun, smashing the kingdom, and check out that sponsor linked in the description. Downloading War and Order does support the channel, and you get to check out a new game, which is pretty cool.